Good morning, this is Natasha Hartman. I just wanted to go ahead and make a quick tutorial video for you ladies and gentlemen about how to help your students gain those much needed points in the multiple choice section of the English STAAR. Well, I know you guys have already been working extensively on the writing portion, and you're doing the best that you can with 27 lines on a sheet of paper. But oftentimes students miss passing the STAAR by 2 or 3 questions. And so I'm here to show you how to help get them those 2 or 3 questions that they need in order to pass. This process and method works best with our special population students. It alleviates a lot of the stress on them. So then that way they can not only be successful on this test, but take that success with them into other tests and into their school subjects. Okay, so first things first, when I start to teach students how to out-trick the STAAR, we look at each section and we look at the title, and with that title we make some inferences about what that title could mean. And so we write all of that down over here on the side, we annotate it, and then once we're done with the title, we skip. And we skip all the way down to the questions. Get my screen to go. So I go straight to the questions because oftentimes with our special population students, all of this reading becomes very burdensome on them. They tend to reread the same sentence 3 or 4 times and get frustrated and give up. For our ESL students, there are words that they struggle with, and there is some embarrassment attached to using the dictionary, which I push from the very beginning of the school year to always use the dictionary so that embarrassment fades. But unfortunately for some students, they're still embarrassed to use the dictionary, so they get frustrated. So what we do is we skip all of this and go straight down to the sentences, the questions. So here we have, what is the most effective place to insert this sentence? And we have after sentence 1, after 2, 4, and 5. So all I'm going to read, okay, is the sentence and then this one behind it. And then from there, choose the one that sounds the best. Now, here is what's key to this. What's key to this is that students need to actually read this out loud. Now, I know they're not allowed to talk during the test, but what I teach students to do is to cup their hands and put it in front of their face and then to whisper into their hands what it is that they're reading out loud. It is loud enough for their ear to hear it and for their brain to process it better, but it is not loud enough for anybody else to hear what it is that they're doing. When you have an entire classroom of students do this, you can't even hear them doing it themselves when the whole class is doing it at the same time. But this is a lot of what is key to them understanding what goes where, because students in our special pops tend to struggle with phonemic awareness, and so understanding how all those phonics go together. So having them read it out loud allows them to piece it together better than just reading it on paper, because we all know your inside reading voice and your actual reading voice reads these very, very differently. So that's what we do first, is have them go straight to sentence 1, read sentence 1, read this, say it out loud, in a whisper in their hands, and they go through all 4, and then they find the one that's best. Now, another thing that they need to do is we tell them to cross out the wrong one. And oftentimes what students do is that they just put an X on top of the letter, but because of the way the brain functions, it's still going to see that X and then it's still going to read the answer. So what you want to teach your students to do is to completely black this out altogether, so their brain doesn't even see it, recognize it, or read it. Okay, on to question number 2. When you look at this question, you see which of the following can best replace furthermore in this sentence. Well, first thing we do is we say that this is a dictionary question. So you train the students to pull out their dictionary, look up what furthermore means, and then find the one that best fits it. So there's no need to go and read sentence 11. All we need to know is what is the definition of furthermore and which one of these best replaces it. Okay. Question 3, the dreaded revision question. Oftentimes what you'll find in the revision is a comma or a word usage issue. So what we have students do is read sentence 15. Once again, this is out loud. Read sentence 15, and that tends to be A. But read sentence 15 out loud, and then as they read each one, to fully cross out the ones that are wrong. Once again, this is one of those things that once they hear it, they know that it is incorrect. Okay? Now, for 4, first off, we need to have students define extraneous. I always say, well, what word do you see in here? We see extra. But whenever they see a word that they do not understand on the STAAR test, they need to immediately pull out their dictionary, define it, and then think of a word that best replaces that word. So I would have students cross out extraneous and above, read extra. Now remember, it's not just a simple line through. You're blacking this whole thing out. So JT has included an extra sentence in his paper. Which of these sentences should be deleted from this paper? Okay, so he is going to go up. So we have 9, 13, 18, and 20. This is the one time that we do read, but we do not read a lot. So the first sentence we're going to read is 9. Okay, we're going to read the sentence before and the sentence after. We're going to read it with all 3, 8, 9, and 10. Then we're going to read just 8 and 10 and see if that sounds better. Once again, this is all out loud. Okay, all out loud. All right. Then we're going to go and do that for the rest. As they read each one and find which one is extra, we'll go ahead and cross that out. Okay? All right. Now, we are on to a new one. So what we need to do here is we now have a picture and we have a title, and we're going to infer what this whole article is about just based off these 2 things. And the kids are pretty successful at going, well, that's an aluminum water bottle and you want to make the switch, so reusable containers for your water. Skip all of this and go straight down. And it's kind of wash, rinse, repeat. This one is, which of the following sentences should replace 6? Serve as an effective position statement. This part right here may confuse them, but all they need to know is which one of these can fit in place of sentence 6 and just sound better. They don't need to understand the full definition of an effective position statement. They just need to go, which one of these best replaces 6? Okay? Combining sentences, you want to make sure that there is a proper conjunction in there and which 2 work best together. So when we look at 7, what we see with 7 is that they need a transition sentence between 18 and 19. So all the students are going to do is read sentence 18 an answer choice in sentence 19 and choose which one sounds better. And lastly, a quick recap on the revising portion. If you look at number 8, what's the most effective way to revise sentence 21? Once again, have the students read these out loud and choose the better. I don't know if you can see, but oftentimes that is the cure for a lot of that. Okay, editing. All we're going to do is in sentence, read sentence 2 and just substitute those words, read it out loud, see which one sounds better. Once again, 11, read it out loud, which one sounds better? Okay, so here is where the STAAR tries to trick the students. If we look at 12 and 10, they're being asked to do the same thing. It's just the way they're being asked to do it. So this 10 says what change, if any, and then 12 says what should sentence 8 be, how should sentence 8 be changed, excuse me. It's the same task, it's just how it's being worded to confuse them. I'm sure they'll say sentence variety, but it really is just confusion, especially for our special pops kids. So they just do the same thing in 12 that they did in 10. Wherever they need to substitute, they substitute. So they insert a comma after grass. They read it, they say grass, they take that breath for that comma, and then keep reading. Then they change reminds to reminding, playing to play, soccer to soccer. Well, this one we know that, capitalization rules, we're not talking about a specific soccer team, just a sport in general, so J is automatically wrong. Okay, now we are on to the reading. The reading can be especially difficult for our special pop students, especially because, like with poetry, for instance, which we're at this section right now, you're given 2 poems to read immediately right off the bat, but when you go to answer questions, you're answering questions about the first poem and you just got done reading the second poem. With other readings is that they're very, very lengthy and quite honestly boring. None of these readings are designed to inspire or to entertain anybody. But with that being said, the recommendation is to immediately go to the questions and to skip the reading and save the reading for later. So what we're going to do now is focus on questions 19 through 23, and they're based on the first poem that was given to a daughter with artistic talent. So if we look at 19, what they're looking for is personification in a somber mood. Once again, this is a dictionary question in the sense that they need to look up somber, find out what that definition is, black this word out, and write the correct word on top. So in which lines does the poet use personification to create a sad mood? And then have them go up to the first poem and first find an example of personification in one of these sets of lines. So lines 3 through 5, or lines 9 and 10, or lines 17 through 19, or lines 28 through 29. Now, this may not be the entire poem, but it pretty much is, but at least the students are still not reading extraneous lines. If we go down to 20, lines 20 and 21 suggest that the speaker, now this question, along with several other questions, are phrased in a way that makes the student feel as if they are being personally asked what they feel the answer should be. Once the student's personal feelings get involved, then oftentimes what ends up happening is they get it wrong because that's what they would choose. So when it comes to questions like this, you want to train your students to know that the test is not asking them about how they feel or what they think. The test wants to know, what does your teacher think the answer would be? So I would have my students say, it's not what I think, it's not what I feel, it's what Mrs. Hartman thinks, it's what Mrs. Hartman feels. Once you get them out of that, these questions become a lot easier to answer. Okay. All right. So when we come down here to question 21, it said read lines 26 to 27 from the poem. Once again, as we stated before, students will often want to go up to the poem and read that. They don't need to. It's right here in this box. And when you read this, when the sky is a surreal sea in which you drown, what they really need to pay attention to is right here. This word is what I call a dictionary word. And so I wanted to highlight it, not do all that. And so we look this word up, we get a definition that we better understand, and cross it out and then replace it at the top, reread this sentence. But here's the key word, is drown. So drowning makes you feel how? Like when you drown, what's going on? There's nothing magical, so we'll cross that out. There's no hope in drowning. Cross that out. It's not emotional, so cross that out. But there is a danger that you get lost. And so drowning is dangerous. But they really need to make sure that they define the word surreal, so that way they can better understand the sentence. Now in 22, we are going to have to read, and when we do read, I suggest the line above and the line below. This is the final line of the poem, so just the line above. And we're trying to figure out what the final line of the poem suggests. So is she going to develop an interest in more practical things? Does he expect her art to transform? Will her paintings become more whimsical as she gets better? Or does he think she's going to be a professional? So let's go back up. Not this one, but this one. So we'll just go ahead and read these. I'll tell you this with love and pride and sorrow, my artist child, while the birds change from green to blue to brown. So if we stop and we ask the kids, what do they mean from green to blue to brown? And let's focus on this word child. And I mean, how do children paint the world? You know, they use whatever colors they want to. And so it goes from being childlike to being a little bit more adult to being what reality has. So let's go back down and see which one of our answers has more about reality. He's not saying she's going to develop a more practical pursuit. He expects her art to transform as she grows older. Now, this is where another dictionary word, whimsical, cross that out, put fantasy if they'd like. And when we go from green to blue to brown, that's not more fantasy. And then, is he saying that she's going to be a professional? No, he's just saying she's going to lose that childlike look on the world and end up painting more as an adult. And so then that would be G. And so here, all they're going to have to do is read the stanza. Stanza 1 and stanza 2. That's it. Compare and contrast them, and then choose the best answer. All right? So that's the majority of the test. Things that they struggle with in general are tone, mood, and theme. I've always found it easier with theme to say, is this talking about life or society? What is it trying to tell you about life? What is it trying to tell you about society? Mood is the attitude that it would have, and tone is if it were to talk to you, what emotion would you hear in its voice? And I'm sure you do it that way as well. I don't know why it's difficult for them, but it is. But with practice, they get better at that. All right. Now, what we did was we passed the other poetry questions. They're compare and contrast. And as long as they're using their test taking strategies and really understanding that, yes, the question seems to be asking them how they feel. It's not really asking them how they feel. It's asking what they feel their teacher would choose as an answer. They should be able to get through those. And now we're on to this reading piece. And this reading piece is called Where the Wild Things Are. And when we look down, we see that this is a journalistic picture of a mountain lion. So without reading anything, I can say, okay, well, this is about where wild animals exist and live in the United States, because you can also see back here the Hollywood sign. So I know this is where wild animals still live within large populations naturally. I'm going to scroll all the way down. And this one, what is the author's purpose for writing this article? Pie. As simple as it is, it still holds true. Persuade, inform, entertain. And since we know that where the wild things are, and based off that picture, we know it is to inform people about wild things living in large populations. Okay, so now that we know that it's about things in the wild and mountain lions living within urban populations, we just need to look at our answer choices, and from here we can see to encourage people to visit national parks. It's not a national park. Advocate for coexistence of human life in urban areas. That's what we saw in the picture. We're not tracking cougars, and we're not wanting to convert urban cities back to natural spaces. So that's an example of how just the title and the picture itself can tell you so much. Here, it says, which words from paragraph 7 best help the reader to understand the meaning of the word resiliency? We don't need to go read paragraph 7 at all. What we see here are our answer choices. So what does it mean to be resilient? You just go ahead and have the kids define this word. And we know that to be resilient means to adapt and to overcome consistently. And we see that definition right here. So this is one of those where it creates fatigue in readers because it wants them to pick out all the words from paragraph 7 when there's no need, because the words they want us to choose from are right here. So it's a dictionary question. Define resiliency. Which one of these match best? If they don't know what a rhetorical question is, which they should because we ask them all the time in English, go ahead and have them define them. Use that dictionary. And what we're going to do is go back to paragraph 6 and read those rhetorical questions. And we know that this is all based on mountain lions living in the middle of a populated area. So we're gonna, why can't a mountain lion live in a city? Why is the human-built environment seen as off limits to wildlife? If it's good enough for a mountain lion, who are we to judge? So all of that sounds like they're advocating for the mountain lion to just be able to live without human interference. So we find that answer here. And then we see that the closest one to this is a shift in her perspective regarding wildlife habitats. So if a mountain lion finds that it's okay for them to live in the middle of this urban population, who am I to tell them no? Okay. So in paragraph 12, we need to look for milkweed plants as gas stations. So we go to paragraph 12, and we go straight to where we find where it says milkweed. The plentiful gas stations of milkweed and other plants needed to sustain them along their migration route have largely disappeared. Planting milkweed and creating habitat is one easy way to help monarch populations rebound, and this can even be done from an apartment balcony. So we didn't even have to read the whole thing, but we do know that the butterflies need the milkweed in order to get nutrients from as they migrate south. Where did that go? Oh, here we go. And here it is, right down there. So once again, here's that tone. Does this sound, how does this story sound? Like if this was to speak out loud to me, what tone of voice would it take? Now, as we move on to the next story, what we see is your brain on movies. And so what we're going to do is go ahead and look for those clues. You have some bolded areas, no pictures. However, we do have this box of information. And just the fact that this has been boxed out and is separate means a lot of questions are going to be coming from this. But we can tell, like, by maximizing the magic of movies, this is what we need to do. And it looks like we have support for that. Turn down here. Read this quotation from paragraph 4. Once again, as always, don't go to paragraph 4. It's right here. Go down to 46. Which word from paragraph 3 means powerful, effective? Dictionary question. Have them define each one of these using their dictionary, and then they can figure out which one is closest to powerful. And then here we are. Question 47 is about that box down at the bottom. So here we will actually have to read, but we're only going to read paragraph 1 because that's all this is concerned with. And then down here is paragraph 5. Here it says according to paragraph 6, we don't even have to go and read paragraph 6. We can just look up limbic system or limbic, and that'll let us know. We can read paragraph 7. Because we read 1 and 5, we will be able to understand why paragraph 7 is a best fit. And then 52, persuade, inform, entertain. And so what we see in that box is how to best make the movie experience great, which is then to inform. What you can also have your kids do is on a blank sheet of paper, when they get their star scratch paper on a blank sheet of paper, they can go ahead and write down pie, and next to it persuade, inform, entertain. They can write down little remembering tips like not what I feel, what my teacher feels and thinks, and any other tricks that they can look back and refer to help them. If you see a word and it wants to know what it means, use your dictionary.